Some news about RFK coming down from the Supreme Court earlier today. We heard that RFK's name will indeed not be taken off the ballot in two crucial battleground states, those being Michigan and Wisconsin. I discussed this earlier today with political analyst Rich Rubino. Let's watch. Supreme Court on Tuesday rejecting an emergency appeal to remove Robert F. Kennedy Jr. from the presidential ballot in two battleground states. The Associated Press says that Kennedy wanted to get off the ballot in Wisconsin and Michigan after dropping his independent bid and endorsing former President Trump in the tight contest. Political analyst Rich Rubino is here to discuss. And Rich, does this leave open the chance that RFK's presence on the ballot could siphon away votes from a real presidential contender?
Yes, yes, absolutely, because and especially in states like Wisconsin and like Michigan, where his name is currently on the ballot, people could go to the vote. Well, for one thing, people that are disaffected by both of the major candidates could essentially vote for him. But I think that the fact that he's spending so much time with Donald Trump, he's become most a tribune of the Trump movement, would show me that anybody who is theoretically conservative would probably vote for Donald Trump over RFK Jr. Anybody who does vote for him, I think, would be somebody who's just disaffected with the process and would be more or less of a protest vote. I don't think there will be anybody very few voters that'll really vote for him simply because they say I'm ideologically aligned. I think that it's pretty much known that he has pretty much dropped out of the race.
You know, coincidentally, RFK Jr. was in Madison, Wisconsin tonight, campaigning for Trump. Yes. What do we know about the demographics and ideology of the people who support RFK? Why has that translated to Trump's team?
Well, it's interesting. So he ran in the Democratic primary, and he did not do very well in the Democratic primary. In fact, he dropped out before Iowa. A lot of his voters are more or less conservative because he's somebody who's anti-vaccine mandate. Now, he used to be somebody who was seen as very much a tribune of the liberal spectrum of American politics. For example, in 2004, he made the case that John Kerry actually won the state of Ohio in the presidential election over George W. Bush. He simply moved to the right on a couple of his really flagship issues. So consequently, even though his last name is Kennedy, there are very few, I think, actual voters on the left wing of the political spectrum who would even consider him really. He's really somebody who is kind of who was, if he were to stay in the race, would have really been a thorn in the side of Donald Trump. Now that he is out of the race, or at least he suspended his presidential campaign, a lot of his supporters, I think, will matriculate over to Donald Trump.
Speaking of third-party candidates taking votes away from the two major candidates, let's also discuss what's known as the Jill Stein effect. Tell us what we need to know about that and about other third-party candidates to discuss this year.
The Democrats blame Jill Stein for the 2016 presidential loss that Hillary Clinton had to Donald Trump. They believe that she siphoned off just enough progressive voters to cost Hillary the election. They also blame Green Party nominee Ralph Nader for the 2000 presidential election, which was decided by about 597 votes in the state of Florida. They believe that if Nader's name were not on the ballot, that essentially the Democrats would have won Florida and would have won New Hampshire. There's so many things we really don't know about. There's so many unknown variables. For one thing, we don't know how many people who voted for Jill Stein, or for that matter, voted for Ralph Nader, were people who are not necessarily progressives, or people who are more conservative people in the political spectrum. Either they didn't know what Jill Stein or Ralph Nader stood for, or they're simply disaffected with the political process. They're willing to come out and vote, but they wanted to vote as a protest. So we don't know if they're necessarily people who are on the left, or for that matter, they could be people on the left who are so disaffected with what they believe is the mono party or the two-party system that they're going to vote for a third party anyway. So what will the effect of Jill Stein be on 2024? Well, she could really have deleterious effects on Hillary Clinton, specifically in Michigan. Her flagship issue has been the war in Gaza. She talks about the call for a ceasefire, and she wants an arms embargo. She wants to stop aid to Israel. So consequently, there are many in the Muslim American community who are absolutely incensed by the Biden-Harris administration. They believe that the Biden-Harris administration, by sending arms to Israel, aiding Israel, that they're responsible for the genocide of what they believe is, according to the Gaza Health Ministry, to the health ministry, there's been about 42,000 Palestinian deaths, and a lot of them blame that on Netanyahu, but they also blame that on Joe Biden and Vice President Harris. So Harris has really been a hard sell to the Muslim American community. And last time around, Muslim Americans were in full throttle for Joe Biden and Vice President Harris. He won 86% of the Muslim American vote. This time around, there's a poll by the Center for American Islamic Research, which shows that Jill Stein actually has a plurality, if you can believe it. She's actually beating Vice President Harris in the critical swing state of Michigan. Michigan includes Dearborn, Michigan, which has the largest percentage of Arab Americans in the entire country. There's also Wayne County. And there are actually some Arab Americans that are actually supporting Donald Trump. But I think that it's really been a problem for Vice President Harris, and Vice President Harris is sending many progressive surrogates to the state of Michigan to make the case that she would be better for a ceasefire than Jill Stein would, and that Jill Stein vote is a wasted vote. But it's very dangerous territory that Vice President Harris has, because if she loses the Arab American community in the state of Michigan, and Michigan is close enough, then theoretically that could cost her the state, and that could cost her the election.
All right, so there's 15 electoral votes in Michigan. There's 10 in Wisconsin. Let's put these votes in perspective for us.
Yes.
These 25 votes, how critical are they in the bigger picture of the presidential race and election night?
So you encompass them with the 19 electoral votes in Pennsylvania. That's called the blue wall. Yeah. Those were 3 states in the Rust Belt that went for a Democratic nominee. It went for Bill Clinton twice. It went for Al Gore. It went for John Kerry. And it went for Barack Obama twice. Hillary Clinton could not win them, in part because Donald Trump siphoned off votes, part because of his opposition to trade pacts like NAFTA, which Hillary Clinton's husband Bill had signed, because he was somebody who had a demeanor that was seen as sympathetic to labor folks in places like Michigan. It's very hard to see a scenario where the Democrats can win the presidency if they don't win at least 2 of those 3 swing states. And that being said, Pennsylvania is probably the most important. That's why if Vice President Harris, the fact that she did not choose Governor Josh Shapiro, if she does lose the presidency and she loses the state of Pennsylvania, forever she'll be blamed for not picking Josh Shapiro, instead picking Tim Walz from Minnesota, which is not particularly a swing state, maybe a peripheral swing state, but she really needs to carry 2 of those 3 states. That's why it is so important for her to make the case that a vote for Jill Stein is a vote for Donald Trump. And there's actually a concerted effort that she's having. And there are groups that are pouring advertisements in saying not to vote for Jill Stein. The Democratic Party has a very hostile relationship with the Green Party, and they believe that the Green Party is responsible for their losses in 2000 and 2016, respectively.
Before we go here, let's go back to RFK. Does it feel very possible that RFK will be a part of a possible future Trump administration?
Yes, I can absolutely see that. I can see him potentially. Donald Trump has said that he would like to have in some form of being involved in health policy. Potentially, he could be a Surgeon General. He could be the Secretary of Health and Human Services. Of course, I think you'd have a problem if the Democrats were somehow could take control or to keep control of the United States Senate in terms of getting him confirmed. My guess is, I think it's probably a better chance the Republicans take over the United States Senate. Then it's just a matter of getting some more moderate members like Susan Collins to vote for him. But at the very least, he could give him some sort of position in the White House that does not need Senate confirmation, maybe even White House Chief of Staff.
All right, Rich, we're going to leave it there for now. We'll be talking to you very soon, I assume. Have a good one.